Alrighty, I decided that instead of covering this on my main channel, because it's almost kind of a nothing article, I'm actually going to cover this on the Nekosaurus channel, because it is about gaming, and again, there's not a lot of meat in it. I thought there would be, but there's not. Apparently, there is an associate editor at The Telegraph called Camilla Tomini, and I have an article of hers up here, titled "Grown Men Shouldn't Be Wasting Their Lives Playing Video Games," and I had so much fun covering the Sonic the Hedgehog article. Let's take the hood off real quick. But I had so much time covering that article that I figured that I would try to do the same here, but there's really not a lot here, so I guess we'll look at this and look at the comments and then call it a day. But you know, when you have an article titled "Grown Men Shouldn't Be Wasting Their Time Playing Video Games," I'm gonna have words, okay? I'm going to, but it turns out that this is one of the most clickbaity articles at all. Like how it's clickbait that you clicked on this video thinking that the boobs meant you were looking at a girl. Look at that. Funny how the world keeps on turning. So, from Camilla Tomini, and I'm going to try not to make any... I don't want to do personal attacks here. I just want to criticize the article itself. Reading the article, traveling on the tube can be a patronizing business at the best of times. With all those reminders about minding the gap and, in COVID times, wearing a mask and leaving a safe space, as if that's possible during rush hour, do passengers really need to be reminded to carry a bottle of water when it's hot? Yes. Yes, they do. I'm sorry, I've been around enough grown adults that forget the most basic of things. People who get lightheaded and forget to pack, like, trail mix or some jerky. People who get dehydrated easily and do not bring water. People who cannot handle drinks when they hit a certain temperature and yet do not bring a thermos with them to keep drinks at a solid temperature. All kinds of stuff. Yes, those reminders are largely necessary. It sucks. You feel like because you yourself do not need those reminders, and every other human being in the world doesn't need them either. But that's not largely the case. Continuing on, yet it seems even the Underground's advertisers are intent on infantilizing their customers. A Nintendo advert has been plastered around the network for some time, featuring grown men and women playing the Switch, in quotations for some reason. I don't know why those are in quotations. The Switch device that is a favorite for their 8-year-old daughter. All right, now we've got this beat, and we're gonna talk about this paragraph before we move on there. So, an advertisement for a gaming device that is played not just by children but also by adults, that's not infantilizing. The whole idea of the Nintendo Switch, for those who have been living under a rock, is that you are taking console-based gaming and taking it on the road, and not in the same way that the DS and PSP gave us console-like graphics, or the Game Boy Advance and even the Game Boy gave us console-like graphics, depending on what console you're looking at. The Game Boy was more of an NES, the Game Boy Advance was the SNES, the Nintendo DS was somewhere between an N64 and a PlayStation 1, and the list goes on. The Nintendo Switch, though, is a unique beast. The entire point of the Switch is to have a device that you can play as a portable, and then when you go home, you can set it up on a stand and then play it as a console. The set playtime free hashtag thing is literally just advertising the fact that you're taking large console experiences and moving them home. The fact that your 8-year-old daughter enjoys the Switch really doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm happy that your 8-year-old daughter enjoys her Switch. That's wonderful, but you strike me, at least in this article, as the type of person who would write, or at the very least tell me, that isn't that thing, insert X thing that you love, for kids. You know, the type of people that say that anime is for kids but haven't seen Attack on Titan, or Berserk, or literally any anime that has a metric fuck ton of gore, or, sex or anything else. Yeah, even Evangelion, definitely an anime for kids. Definitely. The ideas presented in that show were certainly something that I would want scarred onto the mind of a 12-year-old. At the end of the day, what's more infantilizing? Telling somebody they can play a game if they want, or telling somebody that no, they can't, and you're the big mommy in the room who will tell people what they can and can't enjoy, lest they be deemed infantilized? But let's continue on with the article itself. Hashtagged set playtime free, it appears to make the false assumption that most commuters like to while away their spare hours playing Mario Kart, Minecraft, or Pokemon. Doesn't Nintendo realize that the only adults who still use the word playtime post-puberty aren't the types to be found on the tube? They're the overgrown school children riding around on e-scooters. Alright. This is just dumb. Now, the person writing the article might not be an idiot. I have no way of knowing. I do not know the writer, but what I can say is, based on this person has not actually talked with that many human beings in their life. People of all ages, especially now, play video games, and I don't understand why that's a hard thing to understand. I could understand it back when video games were more new, when the Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis were the hot things on the market. Most of the people playing games were kids, because it's what they grew up with. But people who grew up with the Super Nintendo in the early 90s, they're in their 30s now. Think about it. They are, for the most part, either working they're not working their first jobs. They're halfway through their careers right now, or at least in the very first stages of solidifying themselves in one. They've gotten out of college in many cases, if they've been able to afford it, if they're, in the States. These people are functioning adults. In fact, actually, I go to a card shop every week, and I hang out with people who play Magic, and we bust out our Switches, and we're going to be doing a Monster Hunter League up at the card shop as well, and we're doing all kinds of stuff video game related. And guess what? Every one of the people there is a functioning adult who has a full-time job of some variety or another. Some of us with more than one full-time job, and in a variety of areas. One guy works in construction as a full-on foreman. One guy works in insurance sales, and so on and so forth. I don't need to give you every adult's job as a qualifier that they have, functional lives. The point is, more than just children play video games. Video games are a hobby and a pastime and just a fun way to get around. And the idea that it's only for children is patronizing and honestly really insulting. At the end of the day, I thought that this was a sentiment that as I grew up would largely wane away. Just like how people who watch movies are completely and totally normalized, and there's not, at least from what I understand, there's not random articles on the internet bemoaning people who enjoy watching movies. Because they're not thoroughly new. We've had movies for so long now that everybody watches movies. Despite the fact that people in their 50s and 60s are playing games, especially after the Wii came out, somehow magically we haven't hit that time yet. Even though millennials who grew up with video games are approaching their 40s now and starting to buy their midlife crisis cards, somehow magically we haven't reached that point. Now, it's funny because when you go further in the article, she starts talking about the fact that she has a strange type of body dysmorphia, which makes it so she sometimes feels like she's thinner and fitter than she actually is. But I don't care about any of this. I really don't. I really, really don't. She talks about, medical advice and stuff like that. But I don't care about that. Because the title of this article, the actual thing that I'm reading, is that grown men shouldn't be wasting their lives playing video games. I would think that an article like this written on a website that demands that I actually subscribe to it and pay money into it would maybe have a little more focus there instead of just jumping off the rails into something else entirely. But looking at the comments here, we do have stuff like... This has absolutely nothing to do with gaming aside from the one little remark, and the rest seems to be rambling about other problems in the article supposedly directed at gamers. Yeah, I didn't get it either, Craig. Then this one from John James. Live and let live, Camilla. People can spend their free time exactly as they so choose. I enjoy playing video games just as much as reading classics or sport. Considering that video games are now one of, if not the biggest entertainment industry post-pandemic, this strikes me as an attack from a position of ignorance. Worse, you implied that people who play video games are not hardworking, productive members of society, which, considering the proportion of people who are casual gamers is ever increasing, can only be a risible conclusion. And I'm not going to... Oh, and I do want to look at this one for just a second. It's a quote from C.S. Lewis. Critics who treat adult as a term of approval instead of merely a descriptive term cannot be considered adult themselves. To be concerned about growing up, to admire the grown-up because it is a grown-up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish, these things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence, they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things that ought to be outgrown. But to carry on into the middle of life, or even into early manhood, this concern about being an adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret, and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I'm 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness, and the desire to be very grown up. Now, I know that I don't talk about the stuff that is on my main channel here on the Necosaurus channel. This is a place for me to largely not do that. Well, unless you're over on Twitch, in which case I do them both on the exact same channel. This is the place for me to do the now live form content that I do on my main channel, but talk about video games and things I enjoy and gush about things that matter to me and are good, and sometimes bitch about a Sonic article that I don't agree with. But there's a consistent thing that I see with the abuse of people that I handle on my main channel. And that is this idea that people who enjoy video games, anime, cartoons, whatever form of entertainment they choose, are being childish, irrespective of the myriad of other ways in which that person may be a perfectly functioning and fine adult. I don't understand why this is a thing that people do, and I lose respect instantly for people who do this. So I guess maybe I'll leave with this message here, so that there's something in this video worthwhile for someone. Tag him as a wizard, thank you very much for the follow, though. That is greatly appreciated. If somebody's telling you that the thing you're doing is childish, the most adult thing to do is tell them, well, I enjoy it, and I'm going to keep doing it. Because at the end of the day, being an adult means being able to make your own decisions and largely taking the advice of other people, but not necessarily contorting yourself to it at all times, so long as you know what's best for you. If you enjoy playing video games, play video games. If you enjoy playing card games, do that. If you have a hobby, don't let somebody piss in your Cheerios about your hobby. Because it's not like you're forcing them to participate in it. You're participating in it. I'm not going to go over my various hobbies here. There's no point. The point is, people who treat you like a child because you enjoy things that they personally think you are a child, that they personally think are childish, doesn't make you childish. What it does is it shows that there's a part of them that still desperately needs to grow up, and is ashamed because it hasn't. With that said, though, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave a comment, all that other fun stuff. And at the end of the day, we're all just here trying to have a good time. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there, where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here, and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So thank you.